greatest sports debate show on the internet.
Jalen Carter does not die for his knee.
He grabbed his knee, though, which was
a dirty play. That was a football play.
You don't get to talk anymore.
Football play.
You don't get to talk anymore, sir.
Championship rings, starring Brandon Lewis.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions, and welcome to Championship Rings.
And Josh Ungar.
Buddy. So, who was right about the Indiana Pacers making it to the conference finals?
Well, let's see. Jalen Brunson gets hurt, and Alex Burke gets hurt, and Mitchell Robinson gets hurt, and Josh Hart gets hurt. You have the easiest road to the Eastern Conference Finals this side of the Boston Celtics. So, were you right, or was it the NBA gods saying, let Josh Ungar be the only person in the world to pick the Indiana Pacers?
Nope, I was right from the beginning.
Begin now.
I am Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World.
I am not Josh Ungar.
I was going to say, he is not Josh Ungar, the host of the Ungar to the Max YouTube show. Josh had a scheduling conflict tonight, and unfortunately, I could not make Thursday work this week, so we're running it back on Tuesday, and I am here with Voltage Live colleague, the host of the Fitz on Sports podcast, the man who today was on Brandon's World as we dove into the state of Major League Baseball, not the Major League Baseball. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Fitzgerald.
Good to see you all again, and unfortunately, I will not be able to be here the whole time as I've related to Brandon. Make sure to go check that out. 80 minutes of great content, folks. Like, that was a lot of deep dives. There was one update on Tampa Bay from that section that we did in the AL East. They have since been reported to have sold the franchise. It's still pending league approval later this year, but it sounds like the franchise is going to be moved into Tampa itself and out of St. Petersburg, so that's a good development. And then since we have last talked, Brandon, I shot you this just a little bit before the show. There was an AI-written article. I'm not going to name the platform, but Daniel Sheeman was mentioned in it. His dad saw it on social media. And I just want to say this, especially whether or not it's AI-written or not. I'm going to try and censor myself here, Brandon, so you can maybe get monetization, if at all. Look, folks, it's rumor season, I get it. It can be funny to imitate things. This is going to mess people up in the head. And it doesn't just apply to the players only. It applies to their family because it begets uncertainty for them. It really just is not funny. So if you think that's just going to be one thing, it's like, if it's like an off-season thing, it's like, nothing's going to really happen. Like, it's just a joke. That's a one big difference. But when it's especially deadline season, please just exercise discretion on that kind of crap. So, and yeah, I did an AI check, man. And it was about, and again, there was a disclaimer on it, about 84% written AI if this is accurate. So that is all automatically a place I don't really want to read content on. So Patrick Schneeman, we can take a breath.
Well, Fitz, you are here tonight because you are the baseball expert at Voltage Live, and we are. I guess unofficially, it's kind of like the NBA where they say it's halfway through the season, even though you technically have played more than 81 games for the most part.
Over 60. I did the math the other day.
So we are at the MLB All-Star break week, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to go through. We're going to talk about the first half of the MLB season. I'm going to let you drive the conversation here. But first of all, any big takeaways before we don't have a lot of time for it about the home run derby and or what we're going to see tonight?
I already posted about Matt Olson. He was my guy who I picked. I wanted to wait to release it, and I made sure I cheat-proofed. I said I didn't feel Junior Caminero was going to, at least win it was how I was phrasing it, but maybe I was thinking, really go deep. But, wow, I'm more impressed by the fan who snagged that ball. I mean, he went up for it. But, Brandon, there's something I told you I'm not letting you get away with. In the background of the podcast, which you all should go and view, was posted earlier, the MLB, I told you are going to summer school for that.
I know, but listen, hear me out. So on Brandon's World, I'm doing the state of the NBA. I'm doing the state of the
I know, but
NFL.
when you say the MLB or the Major League Baseball, it does
I
not roll
know.
off the tongue.
But I made all of these graphics at the same time, and I forgot to take out the "the."
Because I know you said you only noticed this earlier today. I'm just laughing. But
Yes.
as a whole on the first half, though, to get back on a serious note, I mean, the Tigers are definitely dangerous. They have that talent. The main thing is going to be their pitching. And I know that I saw, like, there always is an August wall. And whether a team can overcome that or not, we'll see. I'm not sure who's going to hit that. I think the Yankees will probably be the team I see most likely, given their lack of starting rotation depth. But there's definitely a lot of intrigue. I mean, the AL West could still be for grabs. The NL Central could have a repeat of last year, where Patrick Murphy, who I forgot to finish my thought on him on the podcast the other day. I mean, Milwaukee has not missed a beat with him having replaced Craig Counsell, and he's now in his second year guiding the Brew Crew. I mean, that's an interesting race. And then who knows what will happen in the NL West. Heck, NL East will really get interesting between the Phillies and Mets down the back half, and just what happens at the deadline. It seems more like a seller's market than a buyer's market.
What do you think of this pitcher for Milwaukee who's been nicknamed, I know not after WB Superstar.
Yeah, Jacob Mizorowski. I think we mentioned him the other day, and Rob Manfred came out and said it earlier today, and I don't have a problem with it. With how much hype he was generating, the excitement, you want to pull in people, you want to pull in the eyeballs. Having him, whether it be right after Skeens or between, having someone between him and Skeens is going to start for the NL tonight, barring, you're not seeing any updates to that, along with Tariq Skubal for the American League. I mean, you're capitalizing, not just on a younger audience, but also on a guy who's just, twisted my ankle guy. I think it was Clayton Kershaw said a couple weeks ago after he just, walked off 12K, something like that from that performance. He is an exciting player, and I think, there are merits to what the argument has been for Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Christopher Sanchez. I will give the Phillies their credit, though, for activating his bonus, according to his agent, via social media. I think, though, again, whether it's the worthiness or whether it's trying to broaden your base, I think broadening the base is the right move. However, I do understand why it can come off in one way, because 5 games is barely enough for a pitcher, because Skeens had the record last year at 11 before making an All-Star
I thought it was 10 or 11. Yeah. It's funny about All-Star games. I always think that All-Star games should be one or two things. I don't think you can have both. Number one, I personally, and I have said this across all sports, you probably know this, I hate fan voting. I think it's stupid. I think it's biased. I think that, it should only be decided by players, people in the media that actually cover the teams.
There are some media members, though, and I'm going to throw media under the bus here. There are some in some markets, whether they be in Major League Baseball markets or in other sports markets, aka other sports leagues, is what I'm trying to get at, who definitely have a little bit of a jadedness at times.
It's fair, but it's less biased than fans going on and voting for some random.
Hey, at least it's not. At least it wasn't on the level of what we had last decade with the Royals and the Cubs those 2 years. Remember that? When they had almost their entire starting lineups being from those two teams, respectively, in the other years. Here's what I found funny, though, with the voting this year. Aaron Judge was the only elected Yankee starter via that first phase of 2 phases of fan voting. Every other Yankee that appeared in phase 2 did not get the fan vote win. They were knocked out. So that was what made me laugh, was that the Yankees could only elect Judge. Again, the pitcher's situation is different, but the Yankees only got in Judge as a starter. Do you know how funny that is? The fact that he got to skip the whole process entirely. They knocked off one outfielder from the end of the results on the AL side, since Judge was an automatic qualifier. Literally, the Yankees, this new system should help sort out some of the bias, because there were about 3 or 4 deserving Dodgers, and about 3 of them from the initial fan vote from phase 2 got a start, including Freeman, Will Smith, and then Shohei Ohtani. So it's really even things out a little bit, especially when you get those ballot stuffer fan bases. Now we have a way to filter that out.
I think I know the answer to this question from you because I'm pretty sure I ask you this every single year. But do you miss the MLB All-Star game deciding home field advantage in the World Series?
That's a question that I don't know anymore. But if I were to give you an answer, I think it was cool for the event. However, like when I think about it a little bit too, there's been like runs. I think the American League recently,
The American
before
League
recent times, like had a long run of just winning
Yeah.
the All-Star game. So it was just like, okay, so the American League's gonna get home field advantage.
The reason why they went away from the rule was because the AL won all those years in a row.
Yeah. So I guess AL supremacy, right?
Hey, I'm not saying anything, but I have put a wager on the American League tonight based off history. Let's see if I'm right. I'm not disclosing how much. It's not anything.
I honestly like that National League lineup just a touch more. It's close.
Well, I'm not going to bet you a lemonade and a lunch like I did for the NBA Finals over an All-Star game, or I might as well end up calling the damn hotline. But
Oh, God, you actually brought it up unprompted.
nonetheless, what are we going to look for here? Storyline, Sean, for the second half of the MLB season.
Oh boy, so where do we want to start? Tampa Bay has obviously got a new owner, and how that evolves is going to be very interesting. It'll be slow news, but that should hopefully help settle once whatever happens with the Athletics gets sorted out. Because I know I spoke about my pessimism. Go listen to the podcast. That should hopefully help in the coming years and after the CBA, whether it's, early in 2026, 2027 lockout, no lockout, it should help lead to an expansion of Major League Baseball in a couple of years from now. I don't know what year will happen, but it should help settle because the main office's priorities among many, and especially of late to even consider expansion, were to get the Tampa Bay and the athletic situations handled and just done with. And if you can get the Athletics handled, because it sounds like Tampa Bay is on more solid footing now, especially with a new team owner planning to move into downtown Tampa, that should help a lot on that front. In terms of the actual game action, we're going to see how inept the Pittsburgh Pirates offense is going to be because not only Skeens, but his fellow rotation mate, Mitch Keller, both of them in the win category because wins have become more of an outdated stat. You need to pitch 5 innings and either be leading when you leave or, if you're in the top half of the inning pitching the 5th, you exit after that and your team goes ahead in the bottom half, then you would be able to get the win or, all the other rules. How many wins do they end up getting this year? Because I think, Keller only got 1 win since his first start within the last, it was like 2 weeks ago, I want to say. And like that's bad offense, even though what we saw from O'Neal Cruz was amazing.
Here's what I'll say to that. I've always believed, I think as you have, that ERA matters more than wins. But I do think a little bit when you start, does the team win overall, even if you get a no decision? I kind of think that.
So, there was an article, I think it was in The Athletic recently, or ESPN, I can't remember who it was, but they wrote up a really good piece on how to overhaul the win based off of game score. And it's a stat that I don't really want to explain too much because I'm not as well versed in that language yet. But when it can be sometimes a little bit funky with wins because Emmanuel Clase, let's say he blows, a save, but then the Guardians were to come back and win the game, and he was the pitcher who was last on.
And he gets a blown save and a win.
Yeah. So there's no save. It's obviously blown save and a win. So let's say, Bobby went 8 innings and then Clase blew the save. Well, the save goes to Clase. I mean, not the save. The win goes to Clase. So there's stuff like that. And we need to kind of refigure this out because there's one faction that's going to be among the older head crowd that's going to be the, traditionalists who want to see the 300 games earned the hard way. But honestly, with how the game has developed and how pitching has moved more towards openers and MLB trying their best to disincentivize those openers, but for teams to stop using them as frequently, there needs to be an overhaul on that front.
Well, and as we talked about, for whatever reason, this year would be the first time since 1989 if we don't get a no hitter.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta believe there's going to be one. There is going to be at least one, whether it be a no-no or a perfecto. I will be shocked if there's not a single one. Again, just one. There's almost like one every year, right?
By the way,
That's
I never have asked you this.
Mm.
Do you I know the MLB does, but do you personally count combined no hitters as one?
Yes, as long as it was at least 9 innings in length.
See,
So the one that was thrown in 2021 by Tampa, that was a 7-inning doubleheader, that does not count.
See, I'm back and forth on it because I think it should be more of like an asterisk as a team stat.
I think there's also this. I was at the 2021 no-hitters that were in Cleveland. Wade Miley's when he was with Cincinnati. He's now with them again. And then former Brewers ace Corbin Burns, he threw the first 8 innings, and then Josh Hader threw the 9. Like that is Hader's was only limited at that time to 1 inning.
Because he didn't want to get hurt.
But also, like Burns threw 8 really strong innings, and it's like you don't want to. And they made the playoffs, I think. Correct?
I believe so that year, but it's still 8. It's not 9. There's
I think it also like how you value it also depends on how many pitchers you use. I mean, if you're using your closer like that, and the way that the Guardians' offense was, it was terrible. Like we all knew they had trouble hitting at times.
Anybody remember Calvin Cowgill, ladies and gentlemen?
I'll tell you one better, Jack Hanahan.
Oh my God. Okay, so I didn't ask you this on the show that we did either. So I know who your favorite is coming out of the American League. You have made no secret about it. You believe it is the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, I think Cleveland losing 10 in a row basically, for me, knocks them out of World Series contention. Maybe they snag a playoff spot, but losing 10 in a row, I don't remember the last time someone lost 10 in a row before the break and then made the playoffs and went deep.
However, if today we're sitting here, obviously, second half of the season, we don't have baseball games again until Friday, who would your pick be to come out of the National League? And then out of that World Series potential matchup, who would you pick as the favorite?
Oh, God. That's the tough part because I don't know if I would pick the Dodgers. The Dodgers feel like they would be the easiest and obvious pick, but they have got so much pitching depth injured. And we're assuming that, again, if this is today, like there's been the trade deadline, let's just say, has been axed, right? They don't have enough, I think, to really get through a whole postseason gauntlet right now. San Diego, I don't know if they would be my favorite. I don't know. It's a very close race. I think you can make a case for Philadelphia, the Mets, the Brewers, maybe the Cubs. They did lose, I forgot about this, Justin Steele earlier this season to Tommy John. So that was a big blow to the rotation. And again, the Dodgers, the Padres, and maybe even the San Francisco Giants. We'll see about Arizona maybe making a little bit of a late run like they did 2 years ago. They have that potential, but without, funny enough, Corbin Burns, it really makes more of their deadline more selling oriented.
Yeah, you know what's funny about the teams you mentioned? Philadelphia, they won the World Series in 2008. The Mets, they made the World Series in 2015. The Giants, they obviously won it 2010, 2012, 2014. But as of late, with those franchises, they all, for the most part, the Giants went in a little bit of a seller's mode there for a couple of years. But
yeah, it was also because of the way the front office was run. But I think I mentioned this before, but Brandon, it's been, I think, 8 or 9 years now that neither the AL or NL Central divisions have had a rep in the World Series. At least one or the other. I think that's going to break this year. I think at least Detroit is my favorite, but if Detroit isn't the team that comes out of the American League, it's going to be a team from the Central, and I don't know who it'll be. It'll be between the Brewers and the Cubs, and I'm going to probably – I shouldn't lean Brewers because of some of the postseason kerfuffles, but great pitching beats great hitting, period.
Well, I've always agreed with that, and I still agree with that. I'm starting to wonder, though. Again, you talked about it on the podcast earlier. The baseballs, if they're juiced, is getting better. There is a thought, and that's why I think some of these prospects for the Guardians have not been called up. But AAA pitching is not at the level of
It's
Major League
different,
pitching
yeah,
anymore.
especially when you're able to view video versus having to always go in person to scout. Like, you can dissect everything down to the details. And while it is true there is a jump, the Guardians, it's not with the Guardians, it's weird because I think you're going to start seeing with players like Chase DeLauder, Travis Bazzana, Angel Janau, assuming that they sign the guy that they drafted in the first round the other night. I'm still trying to remember how to say his last name, but Jace. Those guys, and Jace goes really against the Guardians' typical profile. I know there's one or two local draft folks who are not happy about the pick, but I'm actually kind of stoked because you know who I've loved a long time, and he was
Tony
a former
Bell.
MVP. Yeah, a former MVP with the Dodgers. I mean, if you see his first couple of years before he suffered an injury back around like 20 or 21, if we get that kind of a comp except there's no injury, holy freaking crap, man. I am just pumped up for that potential. Like, that is something. And again, you're going to see a bit of a different approach. I think we're going to see a new gen. Some of the guys like a Juan Brito or guys who are acquired via trade, you might see a little bit of a difference with. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but they weren't. I think there's a real big shift now that we're seeing in the hitting philosophy, and we're just about to be on the first wave of those prospects who are going to be coming up under that.
I know you got to go soon, but I wanted to ask you, MLB trade deadline. Is it a big year? Is it a small year? And what's the big oh my god moment that maybe we don't see coming?
Good question. Good question. I think it's not going to be a huge year. I think you'll see a flurry of trades, especially for relievers. I'm not certain there's going to be a blockbuster right now. I'm just looking up at the standings as well. Byron Buxton's not moving anywhere. He's basically said he's going to put his no trade clause to use, full stop. Jose Ramirez is not going anywhere. I already quashed those rumors based off of a source reputable source.
I doubt Kwan's going anywhere.
I don't think he'll be going anywhere at the trade deadline at the very least. And Emmanuel Clase, I think you can just basically shut that down. His contract's too valuable. I think you could find a path to extend him this winter.
That's interesting.
But for Kwan, I think the Guardians have tried their best. Literally have tried. I think it's going to take more money than what Kwan would get on the open market for him to re-up in Cleveland. Not because he hates the Cleveland market, but I think he has a particular place in mind. I think given how he's a lot of players with his profile are not very commonly seen as successes in free agency, except he's a bit of a different breed in a way, if you kind of get what I'm saying.
I mean, I think he's Ichiro 2.0. I'll be honest
Well,
with you.
I don't say like he's got more natural pop. Ichiro chose not to swing for the fences, but Kwan, I think I honestly, and this is more speculation, I think he would prefer to play on the West Coast where it's warmer. He's from there. He played ball at Oregon State. We'll see. I could be totally wrong, and I would hope so. But I'm not very optimistic because after this season ends, he's got 2 more years of club control, and that's it. And the Guardians probably have tried their damnedest to lock up Kwan. And I had heard there was some level of optimism from a few people that have been around for a while in the early spring. But when that didn't materialize, I kind of realized then and there that it's very unlikely, barring some big change that were to happen. And I don't know if it would happen soon enough to extend Kwan.
Fitz, any other thoughts on the MLB season?
As you mentioned, though, like with the juice baseballs and whatnot, and I've brought up, I'm curious how things are going to play up in the second half because I think we're going to see a large deluge of pitching kind of fall by the wayside. But also, I think we're going to see some of these hitters who were really hot at the start of the season start to cool off. there are going to be guys like the Athletics' Jacob Wilson, among a few others who just, whether it be batting averages, OPS, on base, slug, whatever. Like last year when Jackson Profar was a All-Star for the Padres, I kind of noticed just before that break that he was starting to trend downward. And I'm not correlating it to PEDs necessarily, but he did get busted for PEDs very early in this year's season after signing a 3-year deal with the Braves. So I'm going to be on the lookout for guys who are going to be starting to trend down, or we're starting to trend downward with some alarming trends. Because I think we're going to see a no-hitter in this final stretch of 60-plus games. It's just a matter of who's going to do it and how it's going to get done. It's probably not going to be in a humid ballpark like at Tampa Bay.
That is fair enough, Fitz. Again, I thank you for spending some time with me on this Tuesday. Thank you for joining us, our MLB expert, MLB aficionado here at Voltage Live, the host of the Fitz on Sports podcast, Sean Fitzgerald.
Thanks so much. I'll see you guys around.
All right, and with that, as Fitz leaves the call, we are going to transition, ladies and gentlemen, because I am here on my own now. We're going to be talking Evolution 2, and, me and Josh did our special show on Sunday where we went over Saturday night's main event. We went over AEW All In. We talked about our thoughts on Evolution 2. I was very vocal about the fact that I believe that WWE did not need to do this show, that the Women's World Championship match could have been a main event of Raw, that the Women's Intercontinental Championship match could have been main event of Raw, the Women's Tag Team Championship match could have been on a Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. They didn't really need to do Tiffany Stratton versus Trish Stratus. They didn't really need to do Loa Vice versus Jordan Grace at this PLE. But I must admit, I was wrong. WWE Evolution 2 may have been up there, ladies and gentlemen, as the best PLE of the year from any professional wrestling company on the planet. It was an A+ show for me from top to bottom. And I'm not going to go over every match. I did tell my Brandon's World show today. You can go check that out. I'm going to give you some highlights, though, what I thought of every match. Becky, Lyra, and Bayley for the Women's Intercontinental Championship absolutely set the tone for this event. I loved how, everybody was throwing bombs at each other. The spot where Lyra Valkyria did the Fisherman Buster on Becky Lynch, Bayley was able to hit the elbow. I thought that was a great spot. The point of the match where, Becky hit the main handle slam on Bayley, but Lyra broke it up. Then you add Lyra hit the Nightwing on Becky, but Bayley broke it up. Then you had Bayley hit a belly-to-belly on Becky, but Lyra broke it up. And in the end, after a fantastic, phenomenal 5-star match, in my opinion, Bayley would hit the Rose Plant on Lyra. Becky would do the roll through 1, 2, 3. Becky Lynch retained. And then they continued that on Raw last night with a classic 2 out of 3 falls match between Lyra Valkyria and Bayley, where the winner would go on to face Becky Lynch at SummerSlam. That winner was Lyra Valkyria, who was down 1-0, won 2 straight falls, and now we get Becky Lyra 3. This rivalry to me is very similar to Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar back in 2023, where Cody won at Backlash. Brock would get his revenge in Saudi Arabia at Night of Champions. Cody would then go over at SummerSlam. Here, you had Lyra go over at Backlash. You had Becky go over at Money in the Bank. And now, to me, Lyra is going to get her championship back at SummerSlam. Whether they add a stipulation to this, I don't know. But I think eventually down the road, we're going to get Bayley turning heel. Commentary has mentioned she has not won a match since returning from injury after Becky Lynch took her out right before WrestleMania. We're going to get a more serious side of Bayley, and I think she will be the one to eventually take the Women's Intercontinental Championship back off of Lyra Valkyria, who has really broken out of her shell, in my opinion. I love this feud with Becky when she's been in, and I love the addition of Bayley ever since she's been back. Lyra entered the WWE as sort of like a little girl, right? Good in the ring, but very skittish on her promos. She could wrestle. The Nightwing was a good finish. But now even the birds and the wings and the woo woo is getting over with the crowd, and we are seeing Lyra Valkyria become more and more confident in the ring every single time. The next match I want to touch on briefly is the Women's Tag Team Championship match. I was not surprised that Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez retained the tag team titles. I'm on the record. They're going to keep the tag team championships until Liv Morgan comes back, whenever that may be. And at that point, they're going to lose the championships. Finn Balor is going to side with Roxanne Perez and probably JD McDonough as well. I don't know if Dominic Mysterio, I think that'll be the big turning point, right? Is Dom going to become a babyface? The way I thought Dom was going to become a big babyface, the way he got that reaction after he won the Intercontinental Championship in that fatal four-way at WrestleMania 41, it has not come to fruition yet. Does he side with Liv Morgan? Do we get a Liv babyface versus a Raquel Rodriguez heel situation? I'm very intrigued in that. The other thing is, I like this tag team of Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. Both of the women right now are not in WWE's plans in the world title picture. You could theoretically put them in the United States Championship picture because Julie is not doing anything with the championship. But Charlotte Flair was massively booed when she won the Royal Rumble. She has always felt overly pushed. WWE has tried to make her a babyface. It did not work against Tiffany Stratton. I think showing the more personality on the Charlotte Flair, the more entertaining side of Charlotte Flair, and using Alexa Bliss with her sweet nature, with the doll of Lily. You know, they didn't put Alexa Bliss back in with the Wyatt Six and have her team with Nikki Cross and go win the Women's Tag Team Championships, which I think that's a story they could get to eventually down the line, which I think is maybe why Alexa Bliss returned with Lily in her hand. I always thought the Wyatts were part of her future. But I'm enjoying this tag team. I think those two ladies have great chemistry. They came up together around the same time in NXT. And for two veterans that are now sort of letting the younger stars in Tiffany Stratton and Io Sky and Rhea Ripley take over the main picture in the women's division, kudos to them. Also, kudos to a young woman stepping up her game in Stephanie Valkyrie, who obviously won the Battle Royal, and she will be facing the Women's World Champion at SummerSlam. At Clash in Paris, in Lyon. Who will that be? That will be Naomi after she cashed in the Women's Money in the Bank after an incredible, one of the best women's matches I have ever seen between Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. This match really kicked up when Io Sky did the missile dropkick, knocking referee Jessica Carr out of the ring. Rhea Ripley would then hit a riptide on Io Sky, and with no official, you sort of knew something was going to happen where Rhea Ripley was going to get screwed out of never being able to defeat Io Sky once again. They ended up going to the outside where Io Sky did this incredible dive off the top of some equipment. Right, it looked like her knee hit right on the concrete. She was able to roll Rhea Ripley back inside the ring eventually, hitting over the moonsault. Jessica Carr gets back in the ring. 1, 2, and a kick out. And that crowd, which was on fire, by the way, the whole night. Shout out to that crowd in Atlanta at Evolution. You know, they said they were only going to get about 5,000 tickets in there. They sold a lot of tickets late. They got 8,000. Eventually, as I mentioned, Naomi comes down to the ring, briefcase in hand, hits Io Sky with it, throws Rhea Ripley into the turnbuckle, does the split-legged moonsault on Io Sky, and knew. And if you thought this pay-per-view, this PLE, whatever you want to call it, was predictable, I said there was going to be one championship change in this show. I thought it was going to be Jordan Grace, who, of course, Blake Monroe turned on her in the NXT championship match. But it was indeed the Women's World Championship. As now we know after last night's Raw, we're going to get Naomi. We're going to get Bianca Belair. We're going to get Io Sky at SummerSlam in a triple threat match for the Women's World Championship. And I cannot wait for it. Naomi has been absolutely killing this character as a heel, and we all better proceed with caution. I was a little bit disappointed in the no-holds-barred match between her and Jade Cargill. I did not necessarily think it was a bad match. I thought the spots were brutal. I loved the finish of the Jaded for the table. My disappointment was Bianca Belair's seemingly lack of involvement as the special guest official. I wanted Bianca. I wanted there to be more intense spots between Bianca and Jade and Bianca and Naomi. That really did not happen. But I am excited for this. I know they did the triple threat at WrestleMania between Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, and Bianca Belair. The difference here with this match is at that show was all about Rhea and Bianca, and Io sort of stole the championship, and everybody was underestimating Io Sky. Here, nobody is underestimating Io Sky and saying this feud is not about her. Rhea Ripley and Io Sky both want revenge on Naomi, who is a cunning stride heel who's going to do whatever she possibly can to retain the championship. I do think we will get back to Naomi versus Jade Cargill eventually. That will take place at Crown Jewel in Perth. When Naomi, who will retain the championship at SummerSlam, she will then retain the championship against Stephanie Valkyrie at the Clash in Paris. She will take on Jade Cargill, who will win the Women's Championship from Tiffany Stratton at SummerSlam. And that's how we get Jade versus Naomi at Crown Jewel. Jade versus Tiffany Stratton is a match that we saw the SmackDown after WrestleMania that was interrupted by disqualification by Naomi. We get to see the full conclusion here. And it will be very interesting to see. A lot of people have argued with me that Tiffany Stratton is a better heel. I think she's a better babyface. I think Tiffy time is now. I think she's in a really good championship reign. I thought the match with Trish Stratus at Evolution was pretty good. I loved the chick kick. I loved the spot where they went right into the Stratus faction. That Tiffy was able to hit the prettiest moonsault ever for the victory. But I want to see here how they book this Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill match. Overall, when it comes to SummerSlam, let me just say this real quick before we end the night. I am very excited for SummerSlam this year. 2 nights, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. On the current card, we obviously have the rematch between John Cena and Cody Rhodes for the Undisputed Championship. In my opinion, this match ending is not predictable. Does Cody Rhodes win the Undisputed Championship? Probably. But the question becomes, does Cody Rhodes turn heel? Does The Rock go on? We haven't seen Travis Scott since SummerSlam. Since WrestleMania. Does Travis Scott appear in some fashion? Does Cody Rhodes turn heel? And that's what forces John Cena to go back into a babyface. I think they don't need to do a lot of story here with this match. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to the finish. Over on Monday Night Raw, we have the World Championship match between CM Punk and Gunther. Mr. Unger, my usual debate partner, put out a tweet before the show tonight saying WWE got it wrong with the booking of the Gauntlet match. He thought Braun Breaker should have went over on CM Punk. I'm here to say, and I can't wait to debate this with Josh next Thursday when he returns, I disagree. I think CM Punk and Gunther is the biggest match WWE can book right now. It is a literal dream match, not like the fake ones that they call every single week they put on over there at All Elite Wrestling. This is a real dream match. It's a match I waited for a long time, and Braun Breaker is a heel. Gunther is a heel. We've seen that match in NXT, and yes, I do want to see it on the main roster. I do think Braun Breaker is going to eventually be one of the biggest stars. He's going to be a multi-time main eventer. I think he's going to get over hugely as a babyface once he's done with the Seth Rollins thing. But the thing that makes CM Punk and Gunther to me very interesting is Gunther's a very technical wrestler. He believes he is the best wrestler in the world on today's planet. He believes that this sport is real. Of course, we all know CM Punk is the best in the world. And I think these two are going to put on a wrestling classic. And I could very well see it going either way because I don't know what the plan is with Seth Rollins and the Money in the Bank briefcase. And that part I absolutely love. I was down in the dumps on Sunday when me and Josh did our special wrestling edition of the show because of not only the announcement of the injury to Seth Rollins, but also the injury to Adam Cole over there in All Elite Wrestling. Sounds like Adam Cole may have wrestled his last match. There's been a debate online that, oh my God, Seth Rollins needs to give up the briefcase to Braun Breaker. And I've always said, why? Seth Rollins has a year to cash in the Money in the Bank contract. He has till June 7th, 2026 to cash in the Money in the Bank contract. He does not need to give up the Money in the Bank contract because when he returns to cash in the Money in the Bank contract, he will get arguably a bigger pop than when he did so at WrestleMania 31 and did the Heights of the Century. It will be the Heights of the Century 2.0, and we will never expect it. And it very well could take place at WrestleMania 42. It could take place at the Royal Rumble. Hell, if Gunther's still the world champion, maybe he wrestles John Cena in John Cena's last match. John Cena becomes the world champion, and that's when Seth Rollins makes his return and becomes a dastardly heel and takes up John Cena in John Cena's final appearance. That is on the table. And what's also on the table is that SummerSlam main event, Jey Uso, Yeet, taking on Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed with the help of his cousin. The return of the OTC. Birmingham, Alabama was absolutely on fire last night on Monday Night Raw for the return of the OTC1, the Tribal Chief, the original Tribal Chief, the only Tribal Chief that matters to you, Mr. Solo Sikoa, Roman Reigns. Now the question is, who is OTC1? What does that mean? Well, I think eventually we're going to get back to OTC1 versus QB1. Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, WrestleMania 42, say it with me, for the undisputed WWE Championship. Except this time, Roman Reigns is the babyface that fans will be clamoring for to get his world championship back because Cody Rhodes will be a piece of shit and a terrible, undisputed WWE champion who never defends the championship. It's Wrestling 101. It is in reverse, and it will be a hell of a story that WWE is going to eventually tell one day. So again, between the Undisputed Championship, between the women's feuds, between the other announced SummerSlam matches we got last night, which include AJ Styles and Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship, we still have some things to figure out about SummerSlam. Also, what is LA Knight going to do to get involved with? LA Knight's been in this feud with the Bloodline. Where does he go? Last year at SummerSlam, he won the United States Championship from Logan Paul. This year at SummerSlam, Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre are fighting against Jelly Roll and Randy Orton, who me and Josh both said on Sunday we cannot wait for that to happen. So there's a couple of questions that we need to answer. We still have a couple of weeks, but the SummerSlam card is shaping into form. And in my opinion, if WWE does this right, and who knows, maybe LA Knight gets into a fatal four-way with Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso and Jacob Fatu for the United States Championship. Because I think now that Naomi's going to be on Raw, Jimmy Uso is going to move to Raw eventually, and they're going to reunite the Usos. Maybe that's where the Usos take the World Tag Team Championships off of the Judgment Day when Liv Morgan gets back. All these dots are connecting. They're all setting up. I think SummerSlam has a chance to be better than WrestleMania. Again, I like WrestleMania. I like Night 2 a lot better than Night 1. But this SummerSlam card on paper is better than WrestleMania. And SummerSlam in MetLife Stadium, the first ever two-night SummerSlam, has a chance to really deliver and be the biggest party of the summer. I cannot wait for it. And with that, that'll wrap up tonight's edition of Championship Rings. Once again, a special thank you to Voted Life colleague, the host of the Fits on Sports podcast, Sean Fitzgerald, for joining us in the MLB segment. Ladies and gentlemen, we stream live every week on the Championship Rings YouTube channel at Championship Rings 216. We are also on my partner Josh Ungar's YouTube channel at Ungar to the Max, as well as on Twitter/X at Rings Champion. You can also follow us on Facebook at Rings Champion and Instagram at Rings Champion 216. I am Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World. Me and Josh will be back here on Championship Rings next Thursday for episode 87. It's unbelievable to think we are 14 episodes away from episode 100. We started this journey with you on September 5th, 2023, and it will be almost 2 years come this September that we have brought to you content every single week. A lot of wrestling going on right now, a lot of NFL content around the corner. The NFL season is almost here. And with that, we'll see you guys next week right here on Championship Rings. And